area we're going to cover is safety and security. Joe Tripodo is with us here. I'm going to walk us through this, though, fairly quickly, just because, I think we're running a little long. So we've looked at some of these. These are your operational objectives and tasks associated with security department. So basically, they're there to support and assist building administration in providing a safe, secure, healthy school environment for students and staff. They manage and assist with arrivals and dismissals. They help out and provide support with athletic and extracurricular events. They operate the visitor management system, including screening visitors and monitoring and tracking visitors. Supervise congregate areas, so those are the areas primarily cafeterias, hallways, etc. Actively intervene when there's an issue or problems occur. Monitor the camera systems. By doing that, it enables us to sort of leverage our staff. One person at a bank of cameras with 12 cameras can dispatch somebody to an area if there's a problem, and they can watch that with the camera system. So they're a good investment. It's a way to leverage employees. And finally, review camera footage after the fact if there's an issue that we need to look into further. So that's sort of a broad overview of what safety and security does on a daily basis. So just to jump right into the budget overview, what I'm showing, and we haven't done this everywhere, but I'm showing payroll information and non-payroll information on this grid, only because payroll is such a big part of safety and security. In the past, we used to do a presentation without the payroll, and the security budget was like $1.2 million, but we'd be showing you a budget presentation for like $50,000. So it didn't really make sense to not include that and continue to do that. So the upper portion here, there are 4 payroll budget codes. The first code is the clerical and administrative salaries. We have our sub and hourly salaries. We have our safety officer overtime, and finally security salaries. Those are for our permanent full-time people. So the one thing I wanted to point out here is you see there's an increase, a material increase in our sub and hourly rates. So we're going from $439,000 to $695,000, and that's largely driven by requests for and the need for additional safety officers and additional coverage. And we put that money into the sub and hourly area because we use subs and hourly, part-time people to a great extent because we have good flexibility with that and it's cost effective. So we've bumped that number up. That corresponds down here in the lower left-hand corner where I have a little FTE analysis, and you see this sub and hourly areas going from 19.5 to 23, and that's a FTE count, full-time equivalent. That's what that number represents. So that's one of the cost drivers in safety budget. The other one has to do with our goal, our safety audit goal for this year, and some of the recommendations that may come back and have come back. So we've put some additional money in our security training line. We've put some additional money in our BOCES line. So it was $4,600 for the current year. We moved it to $15,000, and we've also bumped up the security supplies, and also, perhaps most importantly, the security professional fees. So we increased that. There may be some consulting that we need. There may be some software that we need to buy. We know there's been recommendations about signage and training and communications. We've purchased radios. So there's a number of things that we're going to have to carry out, to sort of enhance safety and follow up on some of the recommendations from that safety audit. So that's largely the increase in the sub-hourly rate line, and some of those other items are driving this overall budget-to-budget increase of about 12.9% in safety and security. The other thing I would mention in the lower left-hand corner, as far as the staffing levels, no change to administration or clerical, no change to the contracted officers, so that's full-time, 17 to 17. I noted the increase in the sub and hourly FTE, and then the SRO FTE is still 7, so it's 1 SRO in each building. That's unchanged for next year. So any questions on safety and security?
I have a question. Where is the SRO salary reflected in this overview?
So that is here under professional fees. So we're going from $581,000 to $655,000. So that increase includes sort of a cost of living increase for the cost of the SRO. They're largely paid. Well, 6 of our 7 SROs are part-time safety officers that cover a full-time position. So there might be 2 part-time people that cover a building 5 days a week.
So they're in that top budget code, 2,100, health and safety salaries?
They're in security and professional fees right here, Dawn. So it's 16, 22, 4, 29, 09, 2,100, right here. So 655,000 is where the SROs are. And so 6 of our 7 SROs are covered by part-time people that I just talked about. And then for Village of Monroe, 1 of the SROs is a full-time police officer with the village that works full-time at our building. So they tend to be
Right, it's
a little
just
more expensive.
substantially higher number than the rest of them. So
Right.
maybe should be a little indication that that includes the SRO salaries in there.
Sure. So right here under the fees somehow indicate that?
Well, yeah, because I thought when you spoke earlier, it was, we were just chatting a little bit, that it was trainings and,
Well, the security training is here, so we go from 2,000 to 4,000. The supplies went from 15,000 to 35,000, and then you're right, I didn't point this out, the SRO fees are in there, as well as an increase to cover, like I said, consulting fees, other things that we may, like for instance, let's say we buy a piece of software and we need money to set it up, we need money for training, there may be other needs. So we did increase this as well. This increase is not entirely related to the increase in the cost of SROs. There's some money in there for additional services related to the safety audit.
And you did mention, I think, before, related to that number, that, yeah, there were recommendations that were coming from the safety audit that would flow into that, but they weren't specific yet.
Well, some of the recommendations have to do with better training for the staff, more consistent training for the staff, more consistency operationally. I know one of the things that they said specifically had to do with communication. So we're addressing some of that currently with new digital radios. We're getting hundreds of new digital radios and overhauling our entire system. Tanya, Mulrad is handling that project with Joe Tripodo. So that's a heavy lift, so we're doing that. We're doing that with some federal money from the ARPA money. I know some of the recommendations had to do with signage. In other words, having consistent and clear signage where almost every classroom would have a number, and I think the recommendation is that it's on the inside of the classroom, so if there's a substitute teacher there and they say, oh my God, I'm in room, they don't know the room number, they can see it, and then we can also see it from outside the building. Is that true, Joe?
Outside on the windows, all the windows have to have
Yep.
the ones that room number on it.
And then better signage inside as well, a different size. So that's one of the recommendations. So it runs the gamut. We could get, Joe and I have discussed these things, an alarm, like an alarm system where people could have a fob and they could set the alarm off, or have this on their phone. So there's a lot of different things. And again, it goes to the feasibility of some of the recommendations, the cost of some of the the effectiveness of the recommendation. We'll have to evaluate all of that. And I don't know if there's anything, Joe, that you wanted to add to that piece of it? We covered it. Okay, good.
Just a quick question. What is the difference between 161, 165, and 429 lines?
So this line, this line, and this line?
Right.
Okay, so this line, professional fees, is paying for our school resource officers. So in other words, it's like a fee, we're buying a service. And as I said, we also put some additional money in there to cover, services that we may need for next year related to our safety audit. This is a payroll line, and so the object code begins with a 1, that's how we know that. And this is covering our part-time people. So our sub-safety officers, they're part-time, they're not necessarily there every day. And then this line, 165, security salaries, that covers our full-time people civil service employees, 35, 40 hours a week, full benefits, they show up, 8 hours a day. So it's just different budget codes to track the salary and the people independently. More, it's more granularity, so we can see where are we budgeting people, how much are we spending, et cetera.
I got a couple of questions too. So one, I'd like to see the report that they submitted for us
The
too.
threat assessment?
Yeah,
It's still in draft, it hasn't been final.
okay. When it's final, of course, please, appreciate it. Do we think the people that we're going to hire, we're going to actually be able to do that? So I know recruitment and all that is difficult, and keeping people is difficult, no matter what field we're into. So we think that we're going to run into that issue, or are we confident those extra officers we're going to hire or security is going to be attainable?
Yeah, I think we'll be fine.
Okay,
With the budget, threat assessment recommendation, I think.
great. And then I heard you mention radios. So we're purchasing new radios or push to talk or whatever?
We're going from analog, which we have now that are barely operational, to digital.
Okay.
North Main was the first school to get them. They do have purely digital radios. We are, Tanya and I are just finishing the project now. We're programming all in Nikon Go. We're looking to put 2 new repeaters into the middle school, which will cover middle school, high school, and Valley Elementary, and the rest will go to several repeaters in other schools. And that should be, we're hoping to get the radio, I don't want to be, I'm trying to be optimistic, but maybe by graduation, but I hate saying it, not had it all come through. But the first part about it, we'll probably have 48 radios and 2 repeaters put in as soon as we possibly can. We'll go into the middle school, and then most of the other schools are hurting, so we'll take those radios and cannibalize them, kind of like pass them out to the schools so they're functional until we get the full order of digital radios in.
I just know that's a costly and time-consuming problem.
This radio will run on a district network, so we have done some work on testing we have different altitudes on different buildings. So as Joe mentioned, we set up the 2 repeaters, test this, and North Main was our first building. It is expensive, so, and I know Tanya and Joe, they're looking and working with all the administrators to make sure that you really need to carry a radio, because it's not a Best Buy, or we used to go around, it's not a Best Buy radio, this is a expensive radio, and this also will significantly improve the district safety plan.
And if the network goes down,
It will have a capacity to run on the repeaters.
okay, perfect.
But it's a significant training, and it's a massive project that will soon be undertaken.
Having been a part of it for the Army, I completely understand.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.